Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member from Thornhill.
The spending spree of taxpayer money continues. Liberal insiders are getting rich quick while inflation and interest rates spiral out of control. Housing prices double and more than 2 million Canadians used a food bank in a single month. We now know that the public safety minister's own department paid $17 million last year to the same companies that did no actual work and made millions off the Arrive Scam app, even after concerns of corruption were flagged. I have a simple question for the minister. Why do shady, well-connected firms deserve $17 million of taxpayer money?
The honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, misconduct of any kind in the procurement process is never acceptable. We're aware of the RCMP's ongoing investigation into these very serious allegations. To protect the integrity of that investigation and the work the RCMP does, we will not be able to provide any further comment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
I'll answer the minister's question for him if he won't bother to do so. Under no circumstances do these companies deserve any taxpayer money, let alone $17 million. They're being investigated by the RCMP. They did no work for the government, and nobody seems to be able to understand how they got the contract. $17 million for these guys, food banks for 2 million Canadians. That's what you get with 8 years of these guys. How does anyone over there defend this scandal?
The honourable minister.
Being raised by the member opposite is being addressed by the RCMP. As I said before in this House, we trust our law enforcement professionals to do their work and to do it independently. We will not be participating or commenting on their investigation. We know that it has been referred to them, and our professionals in our law enforcement system will do the work necessary to come to a conclusion. Thank you.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, they are certainly keeping law enforcement busy in this country. $17 million to insiders, and Canadians are still going hungry. Almost 2 million people went to a food bank in a single month. That is the highest number ever recorded. But instead, Liberals are worried about helping their well-connected friends. They are not worth the cost, and they are certainly not worth the corruption. So when will these Liberals and their NDP enablers stop helping insiders get rich and start helping Canadians put food on their table and keep a roof over their heads?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, while I'm impressed the Conservatives are finally talking about supporting some of Canada's most vulnerable, it's unfortunate that their record doesn't stand up to the scrutiny. Mr. Speaker, I was in Kelowna yesterday to announce $31.5 million to build more homes in that community. The Conservatives plan to cut the fund that is actually putting that money into Kelowna. During the pandemic, Mr. Speaker, we continued to invest so families could keep food on the table, where their leader called it big fat government programs. Canadians would be forgiven if they ask, what are the Conservatives going to cut in order to achieve their goals? Is it going to be money for housing? Is it going to be money for low-income families? We'll make the investments necessary to support Canadians in need.
The honourable member for Charlebourg Haute Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the media reports that 1 in 10 Quebecers has used a food bank every month. That's more than 870,000 people in 2023, Mr. Speaker. That's Canada after 8 years of Liberal governance and inflationary spending, such as the $54 million Arrive Can application, which is now under investigation by the RCMP. Who's going to defend Quebecers who are having trouble feeding themselves? Selling out the bloc. They want to radically increase the tax on petrol and food. Will the Prime Minister give up his inflationary spending so that Quebecers can finally eat? The Honourable Minister for Justice. Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Speaker. As I highlighted at the beginning of this afternoon, unacceptable behaviour in a procurement process is unacceptable by nature. We are aware that the RCMP is investigating the matter. They are investigating allegations. To protect the integrity of this investigation, we won't make any other comment. Thank you. The honourable member for Charlebourg Haute Saint-Charles. Another big problem, Mr. Speaker, a NANOS survey reveals that 28% of mortgage holders in Quebec will have to renew their contract within the next year and a half. Of these, 79% say they are concerned about this imminent renewal. Over a third of Quebecers cite rising interest rates as the main reason for their financial worries. After 8 years under this Prime Minister, Quebecers fear they could find themselves on the street. Will the Prime Minister finally stop wasting taxpayers' money in order to curb inflation and rising interest rates? The Honourable Minister. You know what Quebecers fear, Mr. Speaker? They fear Conservatives, because Conservatives think of cuts. They go to bed thinking about cuts and they wake up thinking of austerity. Quebecers are afraid of cuts for seniors, for housing, for healthcare, for childcare. There's nothing more spooky than the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, Radio-Canada has learned that the federal government is considering reviewing its immigration thresholds in 2026 because of the housing crisis. Finally, Mr. Speaker, finally the Liberals have come to understand that there is a limit to accepting families, knowing that we won't be even able to house them. Except, Mr. Speaker, the housing crisis isn't in 2026, it's right now. And the Liberals are going to increase thresholds in 2024 and 2025. Will the government finally be responsible and re-examine its thresholds starting in 2024? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's possible to welcome new arrivals and build housing at the same time. I have good news for my colleagues. We have signed an agreement with the province of Quebec to build housing units in Quebec.
Sure that we continue to embrace newcomers. They are key to our economic growth. They are key to our healthcare system, and we can build homes for Canadians at the same time. That is precisely what we will do. I hope my colleague will join me in this effort.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the government must review its thresholds as of 2024. Above all, it must review them in cooperation with Quebec and other provinces. The Liberals are still plotting behind closed doors at the moment. They are right to be concerned about housing capacity, of course. But they have, for healthcare, education, franchisation, transport, infrastructure, that's a provincial matter, a Quebec matter. Will the government ask provinces and consult them and adjust its thresholds in consequence? The Honourable Minister for Immigration. First of all, Mr. Speaker, as a Quebecer, I have my opinions on immigration. I'm pro-immigration. We'll have a lot of time to speak about it on the 1st of November. We need immigrants in Canada. We need to build housing. We need 100,000 people in construction jobs. For that, we need immigration.
L'honorable député d'Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, people need affordable homes now. Canadians are exhausted with Conservative and Liberal governments making big announcements while families cannot afford a home. Tens of thousands are on waiting lists. They're sleeping in their cars, in tents, in sleeping bags on the street in Edmonton, and it is snowing and freezing today. The Conservative plan is to help their rich developers, and the Liberals are missing in action. How many more years will Edmontonians have to wait to get a home they can afford?
Good question.
L'honorable Ministre.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her concern for some of Canada's most vulnerables, but I'm happy to inform her that we have been working for a number of years to build more homes to support them. In fact, we have doubled funding through the Reaching Home program to support some of Canada's most vulnerables. We've recently removed the GST on new apartments, and we've seen thousands of new homes that are coming online as a result. I was recently in Western Canada to make an announcement to change the way that cities are going to build homes. We are going to pull every lever at our disposal to build more homes faster for Canadians, including to provide supports to some of the country's most vulnerable people.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, the minister keeps talking about solutions that aren't going to happen for this winter. As my colleague from Edmonton said, the people are already sleeping out on the street. Students are sleeping in tents, couch surfing, or living in overcrowded conditions because they can't find affordable housing. It's beyond unacceptable. The lack of affordable rental options for students in BC is leaving them vulnerable to exploitation and homelessness today. But the Liberals and the Conservatives are too busy blaming each other and other levels of government instead of getting to work. When will this government invest in affordable and safe student housing for today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to share with the honourable member that as a result of the measures we put in place directly to support some of Canada's most vulnerables, we have prevented more than 120,000 Canadians from becoming homeless, and we have found permanent housing for almost 70,000 more who were experiencing homelessness. Mr. Speaker, we know there is more to do. That is why we continue to make investments through the National Housing Strategy, which has now created or retrofitted 500,000 homes for Canadians. We will do everything we can to build more homes. I'm glad the NDP is alongside us. I invite the Conservatives to get on board.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
The Governor of the Bank of Canada just slammed this incompetent Liberal NDP government for failed economic policies. After 8 years, even he knows this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. He said their deficits fueled inflation that caused 10 interest rate hikes in 19 months, the most rapid in Canadian history. Mortgage costs have already doubled, and anyone renewing their mortgage now will see a minimum of double the interest rate. That's failure, Mr. Speaker. Will he rein in his spending and balance the budget so interest rate and inflation can come down and Canadians don't lose their homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government is laser focused on ensuring inflation can stabilize and interest rates can come down. We're doing it with a fiscally responsible plan, one that's seen inflation come down from its peak at 8.1% in June of 2022. It's also a pillar that our AAA credit rating has been reaffirmed. The Conservative leaders' plan is to fire the Bank of Canada governor and attack the independence of our institutions. How is that on earth? How is that going to impact and help Canadians?
Once again, I'd like to ask honourable members to please keep their voices down while the other members are responding, people who have the floor. And who has the floor right now is a member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
If responsible is adding more debt than every government before them combined, I'd hate to see what the Prime Minister on a bender looks like. Robert Asselin, former Liberal advisor to the Prime Minister, admitted today at Finance Committee Liberal NDP spending is working against the Bank of Canada. Even the Governor of the Bank of Canada said government spending is making his job harder and is not helpful. While this Prime Minister has a tiff with the Bank Governor, Canadians and their homes are caught in the crossfire. After 8 years, he's not worth the cost. Will he finally rein in the spending so interest rates and inflation can come down and Canadians don't have to lose their homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we believe in the independence of our institution. The Bank of Canada pursues an independent monetary policy that is best suited to Canada's economic circumstances. Keeping these institutions free from political interference isn't a matter of principle. It's a matter of protecting Canadians' livelihoods, their businesses, and our economy. Canada's AAA credit rating was reaffirmed last month, and Canada still has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. The Conservatives can keep fear-mongering all they want. Canadians expect better, and they deserve better.
Colleagues, I'm sure we'll all want to hear the question from the member from Calgary Heritage. The Honourable Member from Calgary Heritage.
8 long years of this costly coalition's carbon tax and inflationary deficits. Record food bank usage right across this country. In the past year, the Calgary Food Bank saw demand surge by 32%. Wow. Its highest increase on record. Canadians go hungry. NDP Liberals get rich. When will this Prime Minister axe his failed carbon tax and admit he's not worth the cost?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that Canadian families are struggling to afford groceries, and we will continue to support families with programs like the Canada Child Benefit. We've also made funding available to food banks and charities across this country, including through the $400 million invested in the Community Services Recovery Program. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to address food insecurity across the country and support Canadians in their time of need.
The honourable member from Calgary Heritage.
Are these NDP Liberals even hearing themselves, Mr. Speaker? Arrive Scam, SNC Lavalin, We Charity. They get rich by printing, spending, and stealing your money. And how? They quadruple the carbon tax, a tax on food. With 2 million Canadians using food banks, where do they think the food banks get the food from?
I do ask members to please be mindful of the language which they employ to making sure that there are not disruptive statements in the House. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we value the role that farmers play in this country providing food for our tables. But what's interesting, Mr. Speaker, and if we want to talk about making sure that life is affordable for Albertans and Canadians for the long term, where is that member of Parliament from the Conservative Party? Where are his 29 colleagues when it comes to protecting and preserving the Canada Pension Plan? I can tell you where they are, Mr. Speaker, simply not on the job. Now we have the Ontario Finance Minister concerned about this. We're going to have a special meeting over this. Albertans want to stay in the CPP. Where are the Conservative MPs? Silent and absent on the job.
Colleagues. The honourable member from Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this costly coalition, we hear things like this from the Vancouver Food Bank. Quote, "We see parents who are skipping meals so their children can eat. We see people who haven't eaten in days. We see seniors who haven't had produce in months," end quote. In my hometown of Kamloops, Mr. Speaker, 225 children per week are getting community food support 3 times a day. When will this NDP Liberal government wake up and recognize that they are sending Canadians to the food bank in unprecedented numbers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Time and again, while the Conservatives have stood against helping our most vulnerable, we have fought time and time again for tangible measures that help Canadians, like the CCB, the workers' benefit, childcare, dental care, the grocery rebate, increasing OAS, the GIS, quarterly carbon price rebates. We are proud to have lifted over 2.7 million Canadians out of poverty. That's 2.7 million more Canadians that would be joining food bank lines if the Conservatives had their way.
That's right.
The honourable member from Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, isn't this the member that told Canadians that carbon taxes would be painful? Mr. Speaker, we have to remember that this Liberal NDP government wants to quadruple the carbon tax from 14 to 61 cents a litre. They have had 8 years to get it right, and they got it wrong, and wrong, Mr. Speaker. I worry that this Christmas we won't be giving toys. People will be getting canned food. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will this NDP Liberal government end their costly inflation and carbon tax increases?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians are wising up to the fact that the Conservatives would cut programs for some of the most vulnerable Canadians in our communities. Our government has put in place that have lifted almost 500,000 kids out of poverty, that have reduced childcare fees by 50%, saving families hundreds of dollars per month, to name just two. Canadians also know that the Conservatives won't step up to fight climate change, would reverse course, make pollution free again, drive up emissions with reckless abandon. So let me ask the Conservatives a question. When will these slash and burn Conservatives realize that their reckless behavior puts the future of Canadian families and our planet at risk?
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, 250,000 businesses are threatened with bankruptcy as early as 2024 if the federal government does not act. That is the warning signal sent out on Friday by all the premiers of Quebec, the provinces and the territories. They are all calling for the repayment of emergency account loans to be deferred for a year with no loss of subsidy. In doing so, they are adding their voices to those of the National Assembly, which is also unanimous. All the premiers are asking for it. All the MNAs of Quebec are asking for it. Will the government finally listen to them all instead of pushing 250,000 SMEs into bankruptcy? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, thank you to my colleague for her question. Our government understands that small businesses are still trying to recover from the pandemic, and that is the reason for which we recently announced an extension by 1 year of the reimbursement. We've also announced more flexibility and more time to access to loans. This is added to increases we have brought to the Canada Childcare Benefit, so that childcare can be at $10 a day, which has allowed more women to enter into business. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, the government is simply out of touch with the plight of entrepreneurs. And that is probably because no matter how much it talks to them, it does not listen. It is handing over all the problems with emergency account loans to the financial institutions of our country. It does not examine SME files on a case-by-case basis as it does during tax season. It is not making payment arrangements. It is leaving businesses alone to deal with their concerns. The first step of the government wants to help them is dialogue. Will it open a direct communication channel with SMEs that want to talk about the emergency account? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be here for SMEs. To them, we have granted a 1-year extension from last year to this year. For those who have asked for more assistance, we offer them more flexibility. We give them more time to have access to loans. We've also extended the reimbursement deadline by 1 year. I would like to thank my honourable Bloc colleagues who continue to share great ideas and comments to support SMEs. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, 18 days during the festive period, but 250,000 businesses are going bankrupt, and not only is this government offering them deferred payment, it is even unable to commit to talking to them directly. That's not being financially responsible. That's not what being flexible is about. That's not what it means to deliver for Quebecers either, because it is our economy that has the most SMEs. It is here in Quebec that entrepreneurs are worried. It is our world that Liberals are abandoning. Mr. Speaker, no government in the world would let 250,000 businesses close without doing anything. When will the government finally act? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I agree with my colleague on the fact that, yes, there are many thousands of businesses and SMEs in Quebec, and we have always been here for them. We are still here for them today, and we will continue to be here for them tomorrow. The measures that we have implemented are flexible, they are responsible, and they will accompany businesses so that they may reimburse their loans. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to help businesses in Quebec as we do every single day.
L'honorable député d'Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, life cost more. Stephanie, a single mother in Woodstock, worked a full-time job, but after paying her monthly bills, was left with only $9 for food. $9. Both carbon taxes have added 14 cents on a litre. But now this government wants to quadruple the carbon tax, adding an additional 61 cents to a litre. The Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will this Prime Minister accept that by adding a carbon tax, he's forcing Canadians to choose between heating and eating?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, we understand that the Conservatives aren't strong with numbers, but let's put some facts on the table, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to supporting Canadian families, this government has been there at every step along the way. When it was the Canada Child Benefit that puts thousands of dollars each year in the pockets of families like the ones he's talking about in Woodstock, or perhaps the 50% reduction in childcare fees that are going to ensure that that family saves another thousands of dollars each year. Mr. Speaker, we have been there for Canadians. We're there for them to make sure they have money in their pockets, but also that they can fight climate change and protect their children for the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Lambton, from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Speaker, first the NDP Liberals wanted to triple the carbon tax. Then they said, no, that's not enough, and they added a second carbon tax. These two carbon taxes will increase from 14 to 61 cents per litre of fuel. The NDP Liberal government is going to quadruple the carbon tax. But it's basic math. If it costs more to grow food, it will cost more to buy food. After 8 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So will the NDP Liberals accept that their carbon tax is causing Canadians to choose between heating and eating?
Again, I'm going to ask all members, please, to listen quietly to the question which is being put by the member who has the floor, as well as to the answers by the member who has the floor to respond. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Setting aside for a second the la-la land math that the Conservative Party is using on this issue, let's hear what the expert have to say about our plan to fight climate change. The International Institute for Sustainable Development said Canada commits to historic investment in clean electricity and fresh water in Budget 2023. The Insurance Bureau of Canada said Canada's first national adaptation strategy is brave and ambitious. No other country has proposed such a comprehensive suite of adaptation targets. Environmental Defense said new data released by the government demonstrate the climate policy has delivered real greenhouse gas emissions reduction, bringing Canada one step closer to our target.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this government, 1 Quebecer in 10 has to resort to food banks every single month. In my riding, Moisson-Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, a food bank saw a 58% increase over the previous year. At a time when our citizens can no longer feed themselves because of inflation and high taxes, the Bloc is now siding with the Liberals on Carbon Tax 2.0, which applies to Quebec. A vote for Bloc is very expensive. Will the Liberals and the Bloc show some common sense and abolish the carbon tax? The Honourable Minister for the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member from Bellechasse-les-Chemin-Lévis was in a provincial government that fought for carbon pricing. On top of that, the member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier was part of this government, Mr. Speaker. The member from Mégantic-l'Érable, the member for Louis Saint-Laurent, who I respect a lot, publicly vouched for a carbon tax. And now they have a leader who is ideologically against fighting climate change and carbon pricing. Now they change their opinion. It's unacceptable. It's immoral, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Courtenay-Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' for-profit pet project Phoenix Pay System was supposed to save over $80 million. Instead, it's cost over $2 billion and doesn't even work. This has hurt workers like Tina in my riding, a dedicated public servant for 30 years who's been missing pay for years. And the Liberals are prioritizing going after workers who were overpaid instead of workers they owe money to. When will the Liberal government start putting workers like Tina, who are owed what they've earned, first?
Hear, hear.
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
All public servants are entitled to their pay and their benefits, and our government will always stand up for their rights to receive their benefits and their pay. We are working diligently on ensuring that the Phoenix Pay System delivers for Canadians, and that work is continuing and is in progress, but Canadians can rest assured that our work will continue and our government will always support public servants. Amen.
L'honorable député de Rosemont, la Petite Patrie.
Monsieur le Président, être capable de...
Mr. Speaker, being able to feed oneself and one's children is a basic need. But thousands of people are no longer able to do so. Every month, 872,000 Quebecers need food banks. That's 1 out of 10 people. The weakness of the Minister of Industry is pathetic. Begging for prices to stabilize doesn't work. That's why the NDP is bringing grocery chain CEOs before MPs to hold them to account. Will the Liberals force grocery stores to act, or will they just continue to hope and pray?
L'honorable présidente du Conseil du Trésor.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Notre gouvernement travaille tous les jours pour les Canadiens.
Our government works every day for Canadians to deal with the issue of affordability and costs at grocery stores. We have been looking at decisions made by grocery chains, including the commitment to freeze prices and to grant rebates on basic food items. We also offer support to consumers' defense organizations to help them fight practices. Thank you.
The honourable member from Kings Hants.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Kings Hants expect government to walk a line between helping to support Canadians with important programming that matters to them, but also being fiscally responsible. The President of the Treasury Board announced that this government would be examining ways to reduce departmental spending without compromising important programs that matter for Canadians. Can the Minister provide an update to this House on Canada's fiscal position and the work that the government is doing to find efficiencies in delivering important programs to Canadians? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague who represents the town in which I was born. This week I tabled the year's public accounts for the Government of Canada to help Canadians better understand how taxpayer dollars are spent. These documents show, Mr. Speaker, that we decreased the deficit by 33% when compared to the projection in Budget 2022, and we did so without cutting supports for Canadians like the opposition plans to do. We have to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent effectively and prudently, because unlike the Conservatives, we will always fight for Canadians.
The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, this NDP Liberal government isn't worth the cost or the corruption. The RCMP criminal investigation into the Prime Minister's wrongdoing during the SNC Lavalin scandal was thwarted after the Prime Minister hid behind Cabinet confidence and refused to turn over documents. On Monday, he doubled down on his cover-up, ordering NDP and Liberal MPs to block the Commissioner of the RCMP from testifying about his obstruction. A simple question: what does the Prime Minister have to hide?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I find it ironic that the Conservatives would actually use an issue that was settled years ago and reconfirmed that the RCMP the Commissioner has stated, quote, that he was very comfortable with the decision being made. But, Mr. Speaker, while speaking about committee, I find it ironic that the Conservatives are trying to use a closed case to block the investigation of 5 Conservative members on a lavish trip to London paid for by individuals who want to ensure that pollution is free again.
Colleagues, I please encourage you to listen to your wits. The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Speaker, with this Prime Minister, it's corruption and cover-up all the time. This is a Prime Minister who obstructed justice to protect SNC, who fired his Attorney General after she spoke truth to power, who obstructed a criminal investigation into his potential criminal wrongdoing, and who has now silenced the RCMP Commissioner from testifying at committee about his obstruction. Again, if the Prime Minister has nothing to hide, then why won't he let the Commissioner speak at committee and testify?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the fact remains Conservatives had 26 opportunities to bring in the RCMP and bring forward a motion. But what I find interesting is why are the Conservatives hiding the investigation or the study that members would like to have in regards to their lavish travel to London by lobbyists who would like to make pollution free again? $1,800 worth of champagne, a Savoy restaurant, $1,000 for a 3-course lunch, Mr. Speaker, $1,200 at an oyster bar, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps the Conservatives should realize the hypocrisy in terms of
Colleagues, you can see how this works. When one side starts getting excited, then the other side starts getting excited, and it just gets a little worse. We need to exercise a lot of self-restraint in listening to the questions as well as listening to the answers.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the RCMP Commissioner appeared on Monday, ready at the request of the Ethics Committee to talk about the investigation into the SNC-Lavalin affair. The Commissioner was muzzled. Why? Because the Liberal NDP coalition and even the Bloc Québécois all voted to end the meeting. And you know what? Before testimony and before questions, it's costly to vote for the Bloc. It's preventing us from shedding light on another Liberal scandal. After 8 years, why is the Prime Minister still so afraid of the truth? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The Champagne Conservatives should take a long, hard look in the mirror when they are using a situation that the Commissioner himself has said is closed in a way to obstruct committee from looking into the spending of a lavish trip for 5 Conservative members paid for by lobbyists who want to make pollution free again. Mr. Speaker, we want to look into the porterhouse steaks that were consumed, the Chateaubriand, the Scottish smoked salmon, $1,800 worth of champagne. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have a lot to hide, it seems.
Order. Order. L'honorable député de Mégantic-L'Érable.
Monsieur le Président, il y a tellement de scandales.
Mr. Speaker, there's so many scandals going on with this government that the Prime Minister can't even keep up. Yesterday, in response to an important question on the SNC-Lavalin scandal, he responded with info on the ArriveCan scandal worth $54 million. After 8 years of scandal, ethical breaches, and division by this Liberal government, why should Canadians continue to trust a government which paid a two-person firm, GC Strategies, $11 million to develop the ArriveCan application when this company didn't even have the computer skills to do it? Will the Prime Minister admit he's not worth the cost?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it seems the Conservatives are trying to pivot once again from the fact that these Champagne Conservatives are trying to obstruct committee from looking into lobbyists paying for a lavish trip to London, England for 5 Conservative members while they dined on an $1,200 oyster bar, $1,000 for a 3-course lunch, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives seem to want to distract and hide from the scandals coming from their champagne taste.
You'll get invited next time.
L'honorable député de Beauport-Limoilou.
Monsieur le Président, quand quelque
Mr. Speaker, when something is not broken, it's better not to try and fix it. But that's exactly what the federal government did when it entrusted public servants' health insurance to Canada Life. 4 months later, people are getting their medication reimbursed. They're being denied claims for care that's covered. They're being treated like numbers at customer service. That's why the union is talking about people being hospitalized because they can't pay for their care. It's another Phoenix-style fiasco. What's the minister doing to force Canada Life to act?
L'honorable présidente du Conseil de Trésor.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Bien sûr, tous les fonctionnaires,
Of course, every public servant should be treated like a person and offered support to access their benefits. There's no question. Wait times for Canada Life's call center are unacceptable. I've spoken with Canada Life's leadership. I highlighted these concerns, and I said once again that it's unacceptable. We are continuing to make sure that people can access their benefits. Thank you.
Honorable député de Beauport-Limoilou.
Monsieur le Président, déjà le mois dernier,
Mr. Speaker, last month, the minister said, just as she did today, that she expressed her concerns several times to Canada Life, but we're well beyond expressing concerns when there are public servants who are looking for a second job to pay for their own care. The contract with Canada Life calls for the federal government to begin monitoring service level performance only in January 2024. There are people who can't afford to get the care they need. They can't wait till 24. This has to be resolved now. What is the minister waiting for to act?
L'honorable présidente du Conseil de Trésor.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
En actualité, plus
More than 99% of members have registered with Canada Life. Canada Life set up escalation processes for urgent situations. The public service healthcare system is one of the most important healthcare programs in Canada, and we continue to work with Canada Life to make sure that everyone can access their benefits. Thank you.
The honourable member from Banff Airdrie.
Remembrance Day ceremonies in Halifax have had to move out this year because a tent city has undertaken its usual grounds. After 8 years of this Liberal government, things are so broken in Canada that the housing crisis that is uprooting Canadians has now also uprooted at least one city's Remembrance Day ceremony from its own home. People can't afford homes, and now they can't even properly honor our veterans. will this Prime Minister finally admit that after 8 years, he has no plan to fix what he's broken and that he's just not worth the cost?
L'honorable ministre.
Mr. Speaker, one of the reasons that we're dealing with such extraordinary housing challenges, including those that are impacting the country's most vulnerable, is that successive governments for decades made no effort to invest in affordable housing. For the entire decade the Honourable Member's party was in power, they did nothing to build housing for low-income Canadians. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we've changed that over the last number of years. Specifically to address homelessness, which is a crisis for those experiencing it, we doubled support through the Reaching Home program. That member voted against it, so I cannot accept criticisms from him was he does everything to get in the way of the supports that would help the very people that form the subject of his question.
The honourable member from King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, Fred, a senior, wrote to me and the minister concerned about the cost of everyday items. The margin he previously used cost him 88 cents, and after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, it now costs $4.49, an increase of over 400%. And I can't believe it's not butter. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister just isn't worth the cost. Will he surprise all of us, show compassion, make life more affordable for seniors, and axe the carbon tax?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the things that seniors rely upon is the CPP, and the Leader of the Opposition claimed yesterday that the Conservatives have always defended the CPP. But he opposed our government's improvements to the CPP. He called the CPP an increased burden of government. In fact, one of his very first speeches as an MP was an attack on the CPP. He said, and I quote, "If I could invest the premiums I'm forced to pay into the CPP myself, I'd get a much higher rate of return," end quote. In what? Bitcoin. Exactly. No wonder it took him a month to answer Conservative attacks on the CPP, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, this NDP Liberal government first tripled the carbon tax. Then they said, that's not enough, and brought in a second carbon tax. The effects of both taxes will increase the cost of gas another 61 cents per litre. The NDP Liberal government will quadruple the carbon tax. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Mr. Speaker, when will this costly coalition take real action and axe their carbon taxes so Canadians don't have to choose between heating and eating?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question, and I can tell you what is flooding my inbox right now, Mr. Speaker, is anxiety among seniors and young people who are all paying into the CPP with the express anxiety that that CPP will be there for them in their retirement, Mr. Speaker, and that Member of Parliament and his 29 Conservative colleagues have a responsibility to respond to 94% of Albertans who want Canada Pension Plan secured. Their reckless approach is simply not worth the risk.
L'honorable député de Madawaska-Restigouche.
Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement a passé les dernières années.
Mr. Speaker, the government spent years repaying damage caused by Conservative cuts to the Canada Coast Guard, cuts that our communities have not forgotten. Can the Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard provide an update on our recent investments into this life-saving institution?
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister. We all remember the 9 years under Harper when the Conservatives closed Canada Coast Guard stations. Unforgivable and irresponsible. I recently announced the construction of the first ever hybrid Coast Guard vessel at Chantier-Forillon. The choice could not be clearer between a party that makes cuts and a government that invests. I know who I would trust to pull me out of the water.
The honourable member from Coast of Bays, Central and Notre Dame.
After 8 years, this Liberal NDP government is going to quadruple the carbon tax. Higher fuel tax cause higher food prices. As a result, there's a 78% increase in food bank usage since before the pandemic in Newfoundland and Labrador. A heartbreaking 1/3 of these are children. For folks back home, this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Will the NDP Liberal coalition accept that their carbon tax is making Canadians choose between food and heat?
Mr. Speaker, I want to talk for a second again about the CPP because, you know, as a new MP, the Leader of the Opposition claimed he could get a much higher return than the CPP Investment Board. So I invite him to drop off his resume at 1 Queen Street East in Toronto and pitch them his ideas on crypto. Mr. Speaker, I am glad that the Leader of the Opposition finally listened to Canadians, said something that his Conservative colleagues attacked: the CPP. On this side of the House, we have put more money into the pockets of seniors. We have returned the age of retirement to 65, and we will always defend the CPP. Thank you.
The honourable member from South Shore St. Margaret's.
They may think they do that, but they voted 24 times to increase the price of everything on everyone.
Good point.
This Liberal NDP government's plan to triple the carbon taxes on Nova Scotia apparently isn't hurting enough. After 8 years, they now plan to quadruple carbon taxes on Nova Scotians. It's an NDP Liberal quadruple whammy. The destruction of powerful paychecks and carbon taxes have destroyed the dreams of home ownership. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will the Liberals admit their carbon taxes are making Canadians choose between heating, eating, and owning a home? Let's get
The honourable member, honourable minister, rather.
Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely clear when it comes to supporting the people in our home province of Nova Scotia, the solutions lie on this side of the House.
Here, here.
I remember attending a ceremony in that member's riding when we shared details of a $300 million project that's going to be creating jobs at the Michelin plant in his riding. Mr. Speaker, from the time I arrived in this House, we have been advancing measures that are putting more money in the pockets of our constituents in Nova Scotia. We ended the practice of sending childcare checks to millionaires to put more money in the pockets of ordinary people. We continue to advance measures to protect seniors' pensions, and now we're putting measures on the table that are going to build more homes at prices that ordinary people can afford. That member and his caucus colleagues vote against it every single time.
The honourable member from Miramichi, Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, first the NDP Liberal government wanted to triple the carbon tax. Then they said that's not enough, and they brought in a second carbon tax that will add 61 cents per litre to gasoline back home. The NDP Liberal government will quadruple the carbon tax. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Will they accept their carbon tax as making Canadians choose between eating and heating?
The Honourable Minister for the
I
Environment.
think what Canadian wants is to be part of a 21st century planet that is livable for everyone, and when people can have good paying jobs. Just so happened, Mr. Speaker, that the International Energy Agency published their latest report 2 days ago, which shows that global oil consumption will peak in 2025. Global emissions will peak this year, Mr. Speaker, and that investment in clean technologies have doubled in the last 10 years. This is where the future lies. This is where we're working to bring Canada and Canadians. Unfortunately, the Conservatives are standing in the way.
The honourable member from Cloverdale, Langley City.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, farmers and ranchers in Western Canada have been rocked by natural disasters over the past few years, and this year was no different. From floods and hail to drought and fires, Western Canadian producers have faced a number of challenges this growing season and need support. These men and women grow and produce our food. They're forward-thinking and innovative leaders in our communities. While the Conservatives continue to deny and ignore the realities of climate change, can our minister please update this House on how the government is supporting Western Canadian farmers and ranchers through these challenging times? Thank you.
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague from Coverdale, Langley City, for his question. There's no doubt over the last few years has been tough on Western Canadian farmers. And being a farmer myself, I know bad years can have a negative effect on the bottom line and your mental health. Last week, we announced $219 million of federal funding to support our Western Canadian farmers with costs related to drought conditions and wildfires. Mr. Speaker, we have and will continue to make sure we stand with our Canadian farmers and ranchers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, last week, a British member of Parliament who traveled to Canada was detained 3 times and interrogated by Air Canada personnel. He said he was told it was because his name was Mohammed. Now, sadly, this is reflective of the travel experiences of far too many racialized people. Air Canada says that they followed every single protocol. Is this true? And if not, what is the minister doing to ensure this never happens to anyone ever again?
L'honorable ministre des Transports.
The Honourable Minister for Transport.
The second I was made aware, I contacted Air Canada. Air Canada has apologized, and apologizing was the right thing to do.
The honourable member from Fort York Spadina.
Mr. Speaker, the horrific events in Israel and Gaza shouldn't be used to support a particular cause. Innocent people have been killed. No one should use those deaths to justify more violence. Mr. Speaker, calling for a boycott of a Toronto business just because it's owned by a Jew is repulsive. Defacing offices of MPs or MPPs serve nothing. Hatred and intimidation do not advance the search for a just and durable peace in the Middle East. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Public Safety ensure that Canada's hate laws are being upheld and that violent protests are not being permitted?
The Honourable Minister for Justice.
Mr. Speaker, what we're seeing in the wake of the violence in the Middle East manifesting in this country in terms of divisions, in terms of intolerance, in terms of active hatred is repulsive, and it is frankly un-Canadian. I agree completely with the member who just raised the question that these are things that we must all stand against. Incidents of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and intolerance towards one another are not what we stand for as a people, nor as a parliament. We are convicted now more than ever in our belief that combating hatred is a task for all of us, one in which we must stand united and which we must pursue with vigor. Thank you.
Et ceci met fin à la
And that brings question period to an end.
3:18 p.m., the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on a motion to concur in the third report of the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities.